What are metaphysics? Metaphysics is a branch of philosophy that deals with the first principles of things, of reality. It includes abstract concepts such as being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space. It is abstract theory of the unseen, so it has no basis in reality, but it is real because it exists. It is pretty much tied to the mind's eye, which is why I want to cover this in this video. The word metaphysics is the things after the physical body, if you translate it in Greek. And it can also be translated as the science of things, transcending what is physical or natural. So we're talking about energy. Metaphysics has a lot of common in psychology because psychology is all theory. And that is the one part that metaphysics and psychology have in common. I have always had an attraction to metaphysics from a psychological perspective. And since I discovered via my experience of life the importance in what you imagine, and having read a lot of metaphysical books and how they describe how your reality is affected by what you imagine, I am incredibly inclined to explore more connections in between metaphysics and psychology. Because there is a connection. I had an experience where I imagined things that didn't exist, but because I imagined them, my imagination began creating them in my reality. So now that I discovered a lot of the whys, a lot of the analog methods through which my mind was conditioned in order to create a completely different reality than the reality from everyone else, that in itself fills me with motivation and with a huge curiosity on finding more connecting areas between psychology and metaphysics. I am happy that I have already found one, and that is the fact that psychology is not an exact science. But from my understanding of metaphysics, what makes it an exact science is that what you imagine was what I experienced in real life. So I am extremely excited to read with you some of the writings of Florence Scovel Shinn. So if you're interested in metaphysics or psychology, if you're here for the mind's eye, then I know you will enjoy this video. And first, I'm going to tell you who Florence Scovel Shinn is. Florence was an artist and a metaphysics teacher in New York in the early 20th century. And she teaches how oneself can release abundance through a knowledge of spiritual law. And we're going to start with her book, Your Word is Your Wand. In chapter 1, she says the following: Jesus Christ emphasized the power of the word. By thy words, thou shalt be justified, and by thy words, thou shalt be condemned. And death and life are in the power of the tongue. Immediately after, she tells a story of a young woman whom she helped through an affirmation, where after continuing saying this affirmation, the young woman whom Florence helped was made a gift of $6,000. And that this came to be because of her fearless faith, and the spoken word brought it to pass. She says that the following affirmation is very powerful because it brings a vivid picture to the mind. And this is the affirmation: we bless the $2 and know that you have the magic purse of the spirit. It can never be depleted. As money goes out, immediately money comes in under grace in perfect ways. The young woman replied to Florence Shinn, I feel my bag heavy with money. Then Florence goes ahead and says, the affirmation of the magic purse is very powerful as it brings a vivid picture to the mind. It is impossible to not see your purse or wallet filled with money when using the words crammed, jammed. The imaging faculty is a creative faculty, and it is important to choose words which bring a flash of the fulfillment of the demand. As we go on with this lesson from Florence, from my experiences like I mentioned, what I imagined became a reality. And within that same point, the fact that through my previous 6 years, 7 years of experiencing a completely different reality from the point that I began using my imagination, this tells me that psychology, metaphysics, and reality are connected via the imagination. So within this part, our first lesson, that I tell you it is the truth, and that if you don't believe me, try it yourself. What you imagine, you will see manifested. It changes your reality. That within itself reminds me of a book called Overachievement by Dr. John Elliott. He is an expert on high performance. He says of an experience where people have been able to reach incredible goals by keeping their imagination engaged. You should lead your life with the imagination first. So as you navigate your reality, don't focus on gossip. Don't focus on entertainment. If you are ambitious, focus on realizing your ambitions, because our days here on earth are counted. We have a finite amount of time on this earth, and 1/3 of that time we spend sleeping. So don't follow your dreams. Chase those motherfuckers down. The next part of the book, Your Word is Your Wand, says the following: power moves, but is never moved. When man stands calm and serene, has a good appetite, feels contented and happy, when appearances are against him, he has reached mastery. Then he has control. He has the power to rebuke the winds and the waves. So this part in itself is not said how any person would understand it. It is said very obscurely, but let me clarify this for you. I'm going to give you a real life example. This seems a little bit absurd to me, I'm not going to lie, but there is power to that. If one has a deranged customer and one works in retail, as if you keep your imagination busy imagining the customer finger-bagging his kitty while the customer is acting completely deranged, your imagination is not going to be overtaken by your reality, because the reality is that there is a deranged customer who is being extremely difficult. However, you stay in control when you use your imagination to imagine the customer calm. I wouldn't imagine the customer calm. I would imagine the customer finger-bagging his kitty, because that way I would feel better being in that situation where the deranged customer is yelling at me. So because I am there, however, my imagination is producing an overlay on my reality where I can hear the customer. However, I don't see the customer. Like reality imposes me to see the customer. It is my mind that is imposing my reality, not the customer, not reality itself. So in the reality that I live in, or that you live in, the customer has absolutely no power. The power is in oneself, because one is using the mind to control the perception of reality. So even though the customer is yelling at me, I will be completely unmoved, with absolutely no psychological disturbances, absolutely no physiological reactions. Because even though I am physically in the same reality, my consciousness is perceiving a completely different reality. The only part of reality that I am allowing to come into my mind, into my consciousness, is the vocalization of the customer. So I am listening what the customer is saying. However, the reality is not the same that the customer is in. I am living in a completely distinct reality from the customer in that point in time. So at that point, I am the one in control. I will stand calm. I will stand serene. I will feel contented and happy, even though appearances are against me. That is what she means. That through the wise use of your imagination, you are the one that is in complete control of your reality. Because at any point in time, you can imagine anything you want. And the mind, consciousness, only lives in one place at a time, either here or in the imagination. Now, where I find this a little absurd is when she talks about rebuking the winds and the waves. Like, if I am at the point drowning, I am not going to start imagining that I am not drowning. But metaphysically, if I imagine myself that I'm not drowning, when I am drowning, my body dies But I didn't die drowning. I just stopped having a consciousness. But I never drowned. So this is true even when you are dying. This is a somber idea, but as of now, everyone that is watching this video should focus on only imagining and remembering good experiences. Because if you are stuck in a negative memory, in a negative remembrance, and a fucking rock falls on your head and you die, how tragic would it be that you die thinking of something that someone did to you? What an awful way of dying, don't you think? So, if you're continuously remembering a trauma or something that someone did to you, a misfortune, a mishap, for your own good, make sure that you're not thinking of that continuously and you don't ruminate. Because if you just happen to die at a moment where you are thinking of someone that you hate, it would be an absolute tragedy for that to happen when you're thinking of something that makes you feel sad. Now, moving on. We are moving on to the part 2 of this book, Success. Florence says, there are certain words or pictures which impress the subconscious mind. She talks about a woman who lived in a small celery. And this woman read the book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, which is another book by Florence. And this young lady, after reading it, had a thought that came in a flash to start a small business for herself and to open a tea room and a candy shop. She says, the idea staggered at first, but it persisted. So she boldly went forth and procured a shop and assistant. She spoke the word for supply, for she did not have money to back her enterprise. It came in a miraculous way, and the shop opened. From the first day, it was filled with people, and now it is crammed, jammed. They stand in line and wait. One day, being a holiday, her assistants became gloomy and said they could not expect to do much business. However, the entrepreneurial woman said that God was her supply and every day was a good day. She says that an old friend of hers came into her shop that day and bought a 2-pound box of candy. He gave her a check, and when she looked, the check was for $100. $100 for one box of candy. She says every morning she enters the shop with wonder and gives thanks that she had the fearless faith that wins. In order to have faith, one has to imagine what one wants to manifest in reality. So this young woman wouldn't be able to have faith if she was imagining not making money. However, she replied to the coworker or to her worker when they told Florence, this young woman, that they wouldn't expect to do much business. However, she didn't reply, oh, I know, it's gloomy. I don't expect to do much business either. She didn't say that. She said, God is my supply and every day is a good day. That reply in itself tells us that her imagination was filled with pictures and images of herself making money and making a sale. Now, think back to your own life. When you are at your best, you're typically busy and possibly don't pay much attention to your imagination. But I can tell you one thing, that you are imagining everything but failure. So the lesson that Florence is trying to teach us in metaphysics is that even when our reality is showing us reasons for us to feel hopeless, discouraged, or out of control, we should not allow our imagination to imagine that we are not in control, that we are not encouraged. Quite the contrary, we should work extra hard to make sure that our imagination keeps picturing a fantastic day. Our imagination should always be imaging the best version of us, regardless of what reality puts in front of us, and regardless of what other people believe. If someone else says, oh, today is such a bad day, don't say, oh, I know. Even if you feel like it's a bad day, even if you agree at some level that it is a bad day, remember that there are aspects of reality that we don't understand. And metaphysics is a philosophy, it is a science that we do not understand completely yet. And one of the clues that we've had is all these people who dedicated their life to metaphysics agree on the same thing, what you imagine has a huge impact on your reality. I am not a metaphysician, but I can tell you that there is no greater truth of metaphysics, of the things that you cannot prove, that this is truth. I have lived it. So be incredibly careful with what you imagine. Get in the psychological habit of only imagining good things. Make it a reflex of, even when you see your bank account going down for whatever reason, make sure to imagine the numbers go up. Whenever you have sadness because you didn't accomplish something, don't imagine yourself not accomplishing it again. Imagine yourself accomplishing the goal easily and effortlessly. That is one of the hardest things to do, to only imagine good. But let me tell you, it is one of the truest truths I have ever lived. We're gonna finish this right here, and tomorrow we're gonna continue this video. We're gonna continue on part 3 of this book, and it is about prosperity. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good night.